also spoke a little bit about the Deebo situation and kind of euphemisms, I would say. It's kind of, to me, it was kind of a big old nothing burger, but we got to talk about it because the article's out there anyways. Basically saying that nothing has changed, status quo, that no major news has happened since Deebo showed up to mandatory minicamp. But he did mention that there hasn't been a formal, I guess, a formal notice of Deebo rescinding his trade request. So the trade request is still there. But George Kittle on Bussin' with the Boys, a podcast with Will Compton and those guys, mentioned that he expects Deebo to sign this offseason just because that's kind of what the 49ers do. But he did mention some other things as far as in hindsight, as far as the 49ers should have signed him during the season because it would have been much cheaper. But what do you make of the Jeremy Fowler news? What George Kittle was saying on his on that podcast about Deebo, and how do you ultimately see this situation ending for Deebo and the 49ers?
Yeah, I mean, the Jeremy Fowler news is just, just an update. You know what I'm saying? Like, dude is still not signed. The thing is, we still don't know how far away they are from these contract negotiations. And I'm just going to be the person to go out with a little bit of faith and say they're a little bit closer than what they were yesterday, right? And so that's how I'm going to look at it. Because if not, like, you would hear a lot more from the Deebo Samuel side of the camp where he's unhappy. And clearly, just showing up to minicamp, and if you want to say it was because he was getting paid, fine, that's your prerogative. But for to see him there, to see him smiling, to see him talking with his comrades, to see him participating, in the like the pre-warm-ups, he didn't practice, right? But just to see him there, it was a bonus, right? And then you heard all the players when they were asked questions about him, like they spoke. Trey Lance spoke about him coming back. Like you can tell Deebo's going to be back. And then let's get to this George Kittle thing because I don't think Fowler's news was that, it wasn't anything that you have to sit there and pay attention to. It was really no news, right? It was literally no news. But let's get to what George Kittle said, because George Kittle he said three things that kind of stuck out to me, right? Two things you mentioned. The other one was more like, well, if Deebo isn't going to be with this team, I want him to go out there and get his money. Like, wherever it is he chooses to go, like he deserves it. He earned it. He blah, 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 blah. So George Kittle is a big supporter in that. But then he did also talk about, this is kind of like how the 49ers did do their due diligence. I went through this, and I don't know if you remember Kittle going through it. It wasn't as lavish as the way Deebo handled it. They have different agents, but Kittle was kind of pissed off as well.
It was bad, though. It was still bad.
It was really bad, bro. And I feel like no one is talking about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no one's talking about it. And I'm just like, guys, Kittle showed up to camp and didn't practice as well. And that was training camp. He was there, he was dressed, and when it came down to practices, he ain't do nothing until he got his deal. He got his deal. Kiddo was back. He was happy. He had a pretty damn good season last year. I think the same thing's going to happen when it comes to Deebo Samuel. There's no way in the world, right? And you heard Kyle and John mention that they gotta figure it out, right? There's no way in the world that you're going to start Trey Lance and not have the best damn offensive piece weapon on the team. There's no way. There's no, that doesn't even make sense in my membrane, bro. There's no way Kyle Shanahan is going to do that. So Deebo will be signed. I could care less what it's for. As long as he's still a 49er for the next 3 to 4 years, that's all that matters. It's going to be so amazing to watch Trey, Deebo, Brandon, and Danny Gray. Like, I think that's going to be a nice, legit core wide receivers. And so I just feel when it comes to this Deebo Samuel situation, I don't know what he did to piss off the fans that much. I mean, I know he's, he likes some Dallas photos. He likes some Miami Dolphin photos. Like, I get it. But my whole thing is like, isn't this part of the negotiation stuff, man? Isn't this part of like aiding and abetting? Like, you kind of want to make the team kind of like force their hands. So you're gonna do some things. Isn't that what we kind of do? Like, all right, I'm gonna play some mind tricks with this. I'm gonna go head over here. I'm gonna go practice with this guy. I'm gonna let this team know that, look, I'm out here working, man. If you want me, you're gonna have to pay up. And so, I wrote an article about this with 49ers Web Zone about who's being the bully here. right? Is Deebo, because Deebo the bully, is Deebo being the bully asking for all this money, which we still don't know what that number is, or the 49ers being the bully by being stubborn and not really like saying, look, we need Deebo. You can't say you need somebody and then you don't go out and show
Right.
them that you need them, right? It's called appreciation. So go out there, make Deebo happy. Who cares? Like, why do we, the fans, care about the money? If he's the number one paid wide receiver, why do we care? Like,
Well, I do think it's a little bit tricky, and I don't know if there is a bully in this situation. I think that this is the first premium wide receiver the 49ers have had to negotiate with in a while, right?
Yes.
So wide receivers are a little bit different. We know their personality is a little bit different. Their brand is a little bit different. So this is just par for the course. Everybody else that has been in negotiation contracts comes from a less flashy type position, right? The fact that George Kittle went so bad as a tight end was kind of just like, that's the closest to a wide receiver that they had to, negotiate with. So that was a little bit different. But this is what I think it does matter a little bit, Wayne, because what we need to understand as a fan base is we would love to see, as a fan base, we just care about the now and right now. And obviously we need to see Deebo now sooner than later. We want him to be able to get as many reps with Trey so that connection could be well-oiled and ready to go for week one. However, the 49ers as an organization do have some decisions that they have to make, because how they structure that contract is going to give them either a lot of flexibility, some flexibility, or no flexibility when it comes up to these same type of decisions for some guys that the faithful are going to want the 49ers to re-sign as well, right? So Brandon Ayuk is another really good wide receiver. And I think you and me both think he's going to break out under Trey. And so he is under contract. He's going into his third year. He was a first-round draft pick, so he gets the fifth year as well. So he's only guaranteed contract for 2 years after this, right?
Yeah, he got time, so we could pass him on.
Well, do we have time?
Absolutely.
Because Trey Lance is also going to be up for contract in a few years, right?
We got time.
So
that's 3 years.
We got time, but that's the thing. We have 3 years. That key number is 3 years. So the 49ers are looking to construct a deal that makes Deebo happy, but also gives them flexibility after 3 years in case Deebo's money will play a role in being able to make decisions.
That's the part I'm not feeling. See, that's what I'm not feeling, because you have a guy, right, that clearly makes your team that much better. Was Deebo?
But does he make you better at 31 years old, making that type of money?
I mean, all the other wide receivers are making their teams better at 30 at their old age, their ripe age. Look, Deebo Samuel, without Deebo, the 49ers are going to have to find a different way to tick and talk. All right, let's just right now and later. We don't know.
But that's the later we don't know, because look, it's not like Deebo doesn't play an aggressive style of ball where as he gets older, we were just talking about it off camera. The way he plays can lead to injuries, could lead to this. And if the money you give Deebo right now ties it up where you can't re-sign a Brandon Ayuk who is younger, and let's say he's playing as a top 10 wide receiver at that point, and you can't make a decision now. What do you do?
But let's say he's not. So like
that's true. I mean, it's either or. So that's what I'm saying. It's just a little bit different of a calculation that I think the 49ers are trying to dot their I's, cross their T's. So I think it's less about them not wanting to sign Deebo, but more about how do we come to a contract that makes sense for Deebo, makes him happy, gets him the money that he wants, but also gives us doesn't shackle us in a few years from now, where all of a sudden now you and I are having the discussion 3 years from now, being like, they should have been smarter about the contract with Deebo. You know what I mean? Because they can't re-sign Ambry Thomas. They can't re-sign, Brandon Ayuk. They can't re-sign all these guys,
To be fair, in the way the 49ers handle things, there's always an out. So we haven't seen one contract that didn't have an out. Trent Williams' contract has an out. George Kittle contract has an out. And so there's going to be language in there for them to get up out of those contracts. It depends on, are they going to front load the money? Are they going to back load the money? They're going to have to get very, creative, like you just said, with the contract. How do you not have Deebo on this roster? There's no way in hell you're telling me, as much as I love Brandon Ayuk, that he can do what Deebo Samuel did. They have a different mindset. They play a different style of football. They're just different. And Brandon hasn't proven it yet, and Deebo has. So you got. Can I just? I'm having the same issue with my Celtics fan, with the Celtics fan base.
Go ahead.
Okay, so you mean to tell me, and I love Jaylen Brown. I love him to death. But if I got to give him up to get Kevin Durant, I mean, Kevin Durant at 50 he could probably still drop 35 points a night. I don't get it. And so we're talking about Deebo and that same line as Kevin Durant, the older player, the guy that's proven it. You know, Deebo doesn't have any championships, but he has the most experience as a wide receiver. And so you're telling me you're going to walk away from that just because of how it may affect the team down the line? I think the 49ers
absolutely not. I don't think they walk away from it at all. What I'm saying is, I think the contract's taking a little bit longer because
absolutely.
they're trying to figure that out. There's no way. There's no way that they don't re-sign Deebo. What I'm saying is why this is taking longer. I don't think is more about they don't want Deebo or they don't want to pay Deebo. What I'm saying is it is a little bit of a trickier situation because 3 years from now there are a lot of big names like Trey, Brandon, so that's what they're thinking about.
And they have to think for the future as well. They're business investments. So you can't just look at the right now. You got to look at the trajectory of what it might be 3 to 5 years. I get what you're saying. Please pull up Bomber T's comment because we need to speak a little bit about this one right here because the next 49er fan that says that Deebo is a mediocre wide receiver is going to get punch slapped. Because let me just tell you, let me just remind you that Deebo Samuel had 1,405 yards as a wide receiver. So let's just keep it a buck, right? He was top 5 wide receivers in the league last year. Top 3, to be honest with you, if you want to go Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, then Deebo, and then you could factor in your Justin Jeffersons and those guys or whatever. He had 6 touchdowns as a wide receiver, wasn't throwing the ball that much. Now, as a running back, he only had 300 plus yards, not even 4, and he had 8 touchdowns, right? So I can't say that he was a better damn good running back and a mediocre wide receiver. I don't understand. I don't care if they're long passes, short passes. A pass is a fucking pass. And if the guy can take it to the house, the guy can take it to the house. I don't get this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think, people forget at the beginning of the season, Deebo was number 1 in receiving. And it wasn't until they had a lot of weeks. Yeah, until the 49ers couldn't run the ball. And then Shanahan made the switch and got him more involved in the rushing game. Look, Deebo is a very, very good wide receiver. He also has the talent. Yeah, I mean, he also, he also is a product of who's throwing him the ball, right? So when people are saying it's short passes and things like that, well, who's the wide receiver that Jimmy's ever been throwing these long passes? You know what I mean? So like, is it Kittle? Was it even when you had Emmanuel Sanders? Was it Emmanuel Sanders? Like who is this wide receiver that Jimmy's throwing all these deep balls to? There isn't one. So if anybody is having that type of season with a quarterback who is, the caliber of Jimmy, which I'm not taking a shot at Jimmy. I'm just saying we all know his strength is more 10 to 15 yards. Not past that. And so based off of what he was getting, to have that type of season that he had is amazing. And it's not like a fluke. Like his rookie season, he had 800 yards. So it's just, this is the evolution of Deebo. And I believe year 4 of Deebo is going to be even better, especially with the way that now there's going to be that extra level now that's open because of Trey Lance's strength in his arm as well as decision making, so willingness to throw the ball deeper down the field. I think we even see another element of Deebo. So I hate when the argument becomes because he's able to do more than just X, and be able to do Y and Z. All of a sudden, that means that it's because he's not as good as X. No, it's like they use those same arguments against LeBron. Right, LeBron is a great passer. He's a great defender. He's a great shooter. So all of a sudden, he can't be like Kobe and like Jordan because they just focused on X. Like to me, that's a unrealistic argument. I'm a Kobe guy. I'm a Kobe over LeBron guy, but that doesn't mean I gotta take away from what LeBron's impact is and who he is as a player, because I would rather have Kobe on my team than LeBron, even though, both of them have been Lakers. But I just don't understand that argument. Like, Deebo has always been a wide receiver. Nobody's ever seen him as a running back until this year, when the 49ers utilized him because of the lack of explosion that they were getting out of the rushing attack. Now, all of a sudden, all of these narratives about he's a better running back than he is a wide receiver, it just doesn't make sense. Bomber T, we're not taking shots directly at you, my man. We appreciate you being in the show, but that's just my opinion. Wait, Breezy, he's taking shots at you, but for me, that's my opinion.
Look, Bomber better not come with that mediocre crap ever again, Bomber. Love you, Bomber. Now, can you pull up Callie's comment too? Because we got to get to this last point about Kiddo. And he said that he wanted to. He thinks that we should have signed Deebo way before.
Yeah,
we should extend
earlier.
Yeah,
we talked about
and so I didn't touch on this. Now, I'm a little torn between this because before Christian Kirk, now we got to understand the market, how the market works, and who got money. And I want to remind the faithful that the 49ers had zero effing dollars. They had to find ways to get under the cap. They had to restructure Kiddo and D Ford and a couple of contracts to even get under the cap. And I do believe that before Christian Kirk ended up getting his deal, like, I believe the money that they were able to restructure to get under the cap, that might have been something that they could have worked with Deebo, but I don't think it would have been enough. And at the end of the day, I just don't think the 49ers had the money at the time, or still don't have the money, to do the deal. Now, people were saying that Christian Kirk effed up the market. He absolutely did, but it's not Christian Kirk. I mean, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. And so what we got to factor in is, you guys remember year one with Kyle Shanahan when we had like $80 million? We had a lot of money to spend. And we overpaid for a fullback in Kyle Juszczyk. We overpaid. We got Pierre Garçon. We had money to spend, right? And that's just the way it was. We sucked for a long time and we had bread. Well, the Jacksonville Jaguars are never going to be good, and they're going to continue to have a lot of money to spend. They clearly overpaid for Christian Kirk, and there was nothing anybody could do about it. If you really want to know who effed up the guaranteed money, though, the guaranteed money is the Cleveland Browns. So I know Christian Kirk skewed the wide receivers' money, the market for the wide receivers, because the Jacksonville Jaguars said, Trent Baalke says this, man, we can go ahead and pay this guy number one wide receiver money. That dude ain't been a number one wide receiver since he left college. Now, Cleveland Browns said, you know what, Deshaun, I'm going to give you $800 billion. You have every penny. It's a baseball contract. Yeah, you either sign here or you don't. They messed up the market. You don't even have to play. Listen, so that for me is where I think the language, the contract holdups is happening with Deebo Samuel. Right. It's coming down to the guaranteed language. And I think that's
and he might just be waiting because there's still Terry McLaurin and DK that need to get paid. So maybe he's just waiting because he knows that whatever contract, he doesn't want to reset the market. He wants them to set the market and then be able to do it. So in honesty, it's in the interest of the 49ers to get this done sooner than later, because you don't know what's going to happen with Washington and Seattle when it comes to those two receivers. So.
And that's where I felt like George Kittle was coming from. And that's where Kylie is coming from. Man, you should have just said, hey, Deebo, here's $80 million and boom. And Deebo may or may not have signed it because his agent is a little different.
Yeah. His agent's getting all his guys paid. So
all of them.
Cornerbacks, wide receivers, like anybody.
You get a car. I get $100 million. I think the agent is making, if the agent got 1% of every one of these contracts, he's walking away with like easily $10, $12 million.
And a whole new roster of guys that are like, I want that